Hello again. Anybody glancing at the comments on the videos which I make must have seen that scattered throughout them are a number of people who accuse me of being at best obsessed with black people and at worst of being a dangerous racist. Both ideas are worth examining. Let us begin with the indisputable fact that I talk an awful lot on this channel about people in Britain and the United States whose ancestry lies in Africa rather than Europe. Why do I do this? What is it to me if every advertisement I see features black people, or I observe that television dramas now go out of their way to shoehorn black characters into every programme being produced? Surely only a racist would notice this trend and remark upon it. My problem is not so much with seeing images of black people as such, but rather with the grossly disproportionate representation, the unbelievably large numbers of black people appearing. This is the case not only with modern productions, but with revelations of history which has supposedly been suppressed. Then too, there is the fact that this tends only to focus upon black people and not Chinese or Tamils, for example. We see this very clearly when looking at the supposedly forgotten history of Britain, which is an increasingly popular topic in books and the mass media. I discussed this book, Black Tudors by Miranda Kaufman, the other day. It's a typical example of the genre. Now, the thing is, I'm fascinated by aspects of history which have been neglected. Indeed, I make a living about writing books about such things. I can hardly object to others writing about what they feel are overlooked bits of British history. I cannot, after all, expect to have the field to myself. No, I don't mind people pointing out that there were small numbers of black people taking part in the First World War, or working as trumpeters during the 16th century, or running restaurants in the Crimea in the 1850s. That's interesting. However, it seems to be only black people whose presence in Britain in the past is drawn to our attention. This is happening remorselessly. The famous black man in Tudor Britain, in this book here, Mary Seacole and so on. Here's an interesting point. There have always been small numbers of foreigners living in Britain or visiting Britain. Arabs, Chinese, Africans, Caribbeans, Native Americans, you name it, there's always been a few of them, a few of every nationality to be found somewhere in the country, or even in some cases living here permanently. We hear and see only the black ones though, and this is peculiar. If for the thumbnail to this video I had used an image of Mary Seacole, most viewers would at once have recognised her. The same would apply, of course, to the black trumpeter. Let's have a look at his picture just to remind us. Here we are, Jonathan Blank. Most people would have seen that image before as well. Because though I used instead the image of a Chinese scholar called Shen Fu Tsung, who lived in England in the late 17th century, nobody is likely to be familiar with him. We have to ask ourselves this question. Is it that I am obsessed with black people, or is it that others are obsessed with promoting the images of black people until they become so common that everybody in the country has seen them? If the aim is merely to remind us that Britain has always had small numbers of other ethnicities visiting or living in Britain, why are images such as that of Shen Fu Tsung not widely publicised? We all know about Mary Seacole, but how many viewers have heard of Kadambini Ganguly? She was an Indian woman who was one of the first university graduates in the whole of the British Empire, and she worked as a doctor in Edinburgh in 1892. Would anybody recognise a picture of her in the same way that they would one of Mary Seacole? You see, the supposedly hidden history of ethnic minorities in Britain is still largely hidden. It has become instead a purely black thing, excluding Chinese and Indian people who often achieved far more than the black ones. Jonathan Blank in the 16th century played the trumpet. Shen Fu Tsung in the 17th century was a famous scholar who catalogued manuscripts in the Bodleian Library. Mary Seacole ran a restaurant, and Kadambini Ganguly qualified as a doctor. Why are the black people famous and not the Indians or Chinese? In modern Britain, 3% of the population are black. Nobody would object or even notice if advertisements featured 3% of the people being black. If we watched the advertisements on television and 1 in 33 of the people were black, that would be unremarkable. That's not how it is though. In fact, black people make up the majority. That is distinctly odd. The same goes for films and drama on television. If 1 person in 33, the actual proportion of the British population who are black, were to be shown, that would not be anything at all to remark on. If we watched a television drama and out of 33 people seen just 1 was black, so what? In short, I do not think that it is I who have an obsession with black people. I think rather that the boot is altogether on the other foot, and it is historians, television producers, police forces and advertising companies who have the obsession with black people to the exclusion of any other ethnicity. This is peculiar, and if I saw the same thing happening with Chinese people or Indians, I would certainly make a video about that. A false view of both the present and the historical past is being foisted onto us, and I'm drawing attention to this because nobody else seems willing or able to do so.